Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law, chapter 8, number 8. We just didn't quite finish it last week. We'll finish off the chapter, and then start chapter 9. Okay, so chapter 8, we were discussing the morning blessings. So the scenario that we're going to have is that somebody walks into shul late. Now, not us, of course. We're always 10 minutes early. But someone else, they walked into shul a little bit late. Or they were early for their minyan, and they were there during the minyan before, whatever it is. And they haven't yet said the daily blessings on learning Torah. And they get called up to the Torah. Now, one of the morning blessings of learning Torah for the day overlaps. The main bulk of it is the same as one of the blessings on being called to the Torah. So we can't just say the same blessing twice, one after the other or something. So what do we do? That's a scenario. So Ches number 8, chapter 8. Im Karol Olas Torah, person gets called up to the Torah. Koidem Shebeirach Birchas Torah, before they have made the blessings on their Torah learning for the day. So before they made the
Rabbi,
yeah.
Het by me doesn't have number Het.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's the end of 7.
Yeah, under
Thank
7.
you. Thank you. It's the top of my page, is Paraches. Thank you, so I made a mistake. Chapter 7, number 8.
Yeah. So
he gets called up to the Torah before he says his own blessings. Blessing on saying to the Torah. Now, im efshal lo levarach koidem kol brichas Torah v'gam lo im elchol hapachas pasach echad kegoin yevrecha v'goim. If from the time he gets called to the time, so it depends on the size of the shul and how quickly he walks and how crowded it is. If he has time before he actually gets there to say the blessing, to say the blessings on the Torah, plus at least one verse. So he studies something on those blessings before having to say the blessing again. Then Yasa Kane, that's what he should do. So if he's got time to say so it also depends if he knows it off by heart and how quickly he can say it. So if he has time to say the morning blessings, the 2.5 of them, and we say 2.5 because, as we said, one of them, it's not clear whether it's 2 smaller blessings or one larger blessing. So either 2 or 3. If he's got time to say them and at least one verse, for example, Yevarechecha, which is the verse that's printed right after the blessings, then Yasa Kain, that's what he should do. V'achakach Yale l'Torah v'Yavarech, and then afterwards he gets called up to the Torah and he says one of those blessings again, as if he would have said everything as you should, in order. Now, the im ef shalo lasses kain. If he doesn't have time, he's sitting right next to the bimah or whatever it is, and he won't have time to say the blessings. So the kivan, so what should he do? Yale kach Torah. He should go up to the Torah. And he says the blessings on being called to the Torah. So now that he's already said that blessing, the kivan shabarach asher b'chabonu v'chulu, he's already said this blessing of asher b'chabonu that Hashem chose us, the Jewish nation, to receive the Torah, to be given the Torah. Loi yom achakach, he doesn't say it afterwards. Rak birchus asher kedeshana v'chulu v'arevna v'chulu. Ad la'amo Yisrael, he just says the other blessing, or 1.5, as we said. It's not clear whether it's 1 blessing or 2 blessings. He only says that blessing afterwards. He does not repeat Asher B'Chabonu again. And then he continues saying the various verses and then the little piece of Mishnah that we say each day after on recitation. So again, just to sum it up, we have a person, he came to shul late, whatever it happens to be, and he has not yet said the morning blessings, starting Torah for that day. He hasn't said the blessing of starting Torah that day, and he gets called up to the Torah. And one of the blessings overlaps. It's pretty much the same. So if he has time to say the morning blessings plus at least one verse to study before the call up, while he's walking to the bima and they're showing the place and various things, then that's what he should do. And if there's not time, then he says the blessings will be called up as usual. But since he already said the bracha of Asher Bacha Banu, that Hashem chose us to give us the Torah, to receive the Torah, he does not repeat it when he then says his morning blessings. Okay, chapter 9.
No, chapter 8, so.
8, yes. Chapter 8, yes. I just made the same mistake again. Thank you. And you got me again. Chapter 8. Right, in the ideal world, now we don't live in the ideal world, but in the ideal world, we should not do anything before davening to Hashem. Now, in this chapter, we're going to start off essentially saying we shouldn't really do anything, and then throughout the chapter, we'll discuss what you can, what you can't, and what circumstances. So we're going to start off with one extreme, then we're going to go through the exceptions. But in concept, as we are created to serve Hashem, we should start our day with davening, and we shouldn't do our own business first. We shouldn't do our own things first. So, we don't sit down and have a big breakfast before davening. We shouldn't do work, start the hobbies, various things. Again, we'll discuss, one of the things we'll discuss is that if maybe there's only 1 million in town and it's not too much later, there can be different exceptions. But in concept, we should give our first efforts of the day to Hashem. That's what should happen. And we should be thinking about Hashem before we're thinking about ourselves. Like anything, just want to point out, a person should be very strict at their own expense, but not at other people's expense. Right? So one of the things we're going to mention is that ideally you shouldn't go out shopping. And when we learn the laws of Shabbos, those who are with us then, one of the things we learned was that on a Friday, we should go by the needs of Shabbos ideally on a Friday. Remember, there was pre-refrigeration, so you had to get it on a Friday. You couldn't get things in advance and put it in the fridge. So we're even allowed to go before davening. Because again, it's not our own needs, it's the honor of Shabbos, it's all for Hashem. But in general, a person should avoid going shopping. So that's for yourself. But if the wife's at home with the kids and need some milk for their cereal, you can be from your own expense, not everyone else's expense. You got to get the milk and bring it, So, just put that into perspective. So, we'll start off with the ideal, and then we'll discuss the gray areas of life.
Excuse me for a second.
Please.
Excuse me for a second, Rabbi.
Yeah.
I was always taught that on Shabbos, no matter what, you cannot carry no gelt and do any form of shopping.
Yeah, so I'm talking about weekdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Shabbos is a problem even after davening. We can't do it at all, right? But I'm talking about a weekday. Thank you for bringing it up. I wasn't clear. So we've clarified it. Okay, so Aleph, Sha'ala Moda Shacham, from the time that it's dawn. Now, technically it means you got a few rays of light above the horizon. The sun didn't rise yet, but you got a few rays. Now, technically, you're not meant to daven at that time yet. We should wait till actual sunrise. However, after the fact, if one did daven from dawn, he's fulfilled his obligation after the fact. Ideally, as we said, he should wait till actual sunrise. It's not just the rays of the sun above the horizon. The actual sun has risen above the horizon. But if he daven from that time, he's fulfilled his obligation after the fact. So, since he would fulfill his obligation after the fact, that sort of becomes the time where theoretically you could daven. So once that time begins, Shehu, what's the definition of that time? Oir hanoitzis min hashemesh mizrach. You've got rays of sunlight. Right? If you translate the words literally, it means like sparks, but in other words, there's little rays of sunlight above the horizon. Kivinch az maschil zman tefillah, since this, on a certain level, begins the time from which you could daven the morning service, and the Brak explain what does that mean. She mispalel as b'diavad yotze, from that time, then after the facts. So again, in the first instance, we shouldn't daven so early because it's still dark. It's not really the morning yet, but after the fact, we feel the obligation. So therefore, from that time onwards, also la'adam lahaskil b'malacha, a person should not begin any work, or take care of his own things, his own needs, things he needs to do, or leilach b'derech, or go on a trip, before he davens. Right, the first thing we should do each day is daven. Now, again, as I said, life is not always black and white, and we'll see throughout the chapter exceptions. But in concept, we daven first, we don't do anything else. Why is this the case? Now, as it says, Sedek lefonov yahalech v'yasam derech ba'amav. I mean, Sedek, we'll loosely translate that as righteousness. It's not exactly again, we keep mentioning the Hebrew. Yeah, Robert, yes.
I'm sorry, I came in late. Where are we?
Oh, sure. Chapter 8, number 1. My apologies. Should have mentioned it when you came in. So,
thank you.
So you're welcome. So righteousness will go in front of him, and he'll set his footsteps upon the way. So what does this mean? Tzedek, this righteousness, in other words, doing the right thing. Zoit tefillah. This is our davening. First to our davening. Shematzdik leboiroi, because it's righteousness to our Creator. Right? Hashem's made us alive. Hashem's given us everything to start another day. The appropriate thing is to daven and give our respect and our thanks and to Hashem. V'harder, then after that, a person should step out for his own endeavors, start doing his own needs, the things he needs to do or she needs to do. So, again, in the ideal world, we should daven before we do anything else. I'm going to keep saying the ideal world. Base, number 2. So, a person shouldn't eat or drink before davening. Shneimar says, you shouldn't eat anything with blood. Now, on a simple level, that verse means you have to take the blood out of your meat, of your food, right? But on a deeper level, what are we saying? A person shouldn't eat before they pray for their blood. In other words, for their life, for their welfare, for their existence. So before we daven, we shouldn't eat. Now we're speaking about someone who eats when they shouldn't, and we're going to give in this chapter, in this one already, exceptions of when we could eat and when it's appropriate to eat and different things. A simple example would be with health. Some people take medication first in the morning, if take all the food, but we'll speak about other things as well. There are many times where it would be not only halakhically permissible, but even obligatory to eat before davening. But someone who shouldn't be. So, someone who eats and drinks knows they're just taking care of themselves. I want to, freshen myself up and, but before I think about Hashem, so the verse, the pasuk says about such a person, it says, he's cast me behind your back. Now, gavecha, which means your back, we'll do a play on words. Don't read your back, read ge'echo, your conceitedness. So what do we see here on a deeper level? Amma Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, says, After this person took care of his own pride, in other words, it wasn't because he needed to or there was a reason. It's just because he wanted to sit down and have a nice 5-course snack, with 7 courses of dessert. It doesn't even have to be that, but whatever. And so in other words, after a person satiates himself, is looking after themselves, Kibble of Malchus Shemaim, now they're going to accept the yoke of heaven. Right? It's in concept inappropriate. Now, coffee or tea, even to drink coffee, we can drink the coffee or the tea, but to have it with sugar and milk, that's also not allowed. Today, we're much more lenient on the sugar or milk for sure, and sugar also. If you have sugar in your coffee, right? It's because today it's the norm. Then it was like a treat, right? So many of us, our davening will be far improved after a coffee. Now, whether it should be or whether we should need the coffee so much or not is a separate discussion. But many people need a coffee to get going in the mornings. So you can have the coffee, and today when we can have milk and sugar in the coffee as well.
I see in shul people go to the kitchen and bring the drink into the shul.
So it depends if there's different types of what we would call a shul.
I mean into the
I
prayer
understand.
room.
So there's something halachically called a basic knesset, which in Hebrew bet knesset, talking about a shul, but to be the strict halachic thing of base knesset, there's very few of them today. Base knesset means we do davening, nothing else. We don't learn there. We don't have lectures there. We don't have anything. It's only davening.
Okay.
In a basic knesset, it's not appropriate to bring food. Most of our shuls today would be in the halachic category of Beis Midrash. The Beis Midrash is we daven there, we also study there, we'll have lectures, there might be communal events, a guest speaker, many other things. And a Beis Midrash, it's more lenient because since people are spending their time or could spend their time there during the day studying and not just the short periods of prayer, so they can for sure drink something. Now I'm talking about having it in the building at all. So they can for sure drink something, and eating depends what kind of eating. In other words, what are they eating, and where in the shul, and what the purpose is. So it's not really this chapter, but there is concept to be able to eat there. Now, before davening, so far we didn't discuss eating. Let's just talk about drinking. So what we said so far is we can have a coffee. In those days, they didn't put sugar and milk because that was like a treat. People had a much lower standard of living. Today, it's norm. Very few people. I mean, there's some people. My father drinks black coffee, likes black coffee, no sugar, just and the stronger the better. And so he doesn't have his milk. But most people today, that's just the normal way. It's not being
so
conceited
going to the kitchen
or
to eat is not.
So far we mentioned drinking. Let's go a step at a time.
Okay.
Let's go a step at a time. So for sure to drink a drink of water. Water is not a conceited type thing. And we've said coffee and tea. That's so far, right? That's what we're up to. So that we can have in the first instance. It's not even now someone a special need and very sick. Just to mention, since we mentioned the coffee and the sugar. So although I have milk in my coffee, I don't have sugar. And it's not a health thing or anything. There's an official story and unofficial story. So the unofficial story, which is the real reason, it just happened, my grandparents used to babysit me. I was like in 1st and 2nd grade. And they used to give me tea without sugar. That's how they had theirs. And that's how I got used to drinking hot drinks with no sugar. So I never had sugar. But the official story, which did happen, but was when I was studying in a certain yeshiva, which shall remain nameless. So I won't say which yeshiva it was. Once you hear the story, you'll know why. And all the students used to take a turn for a week looking after the coffee machine. So comes my week, and I had to go fill up the sugar. So I go to the cook in the kitchen. I'm asking for sugar for the coffee machine. shows me a big pot. I lift up the pot. There's like hundreds of ants all in the sugar. So I said to him, the sugars, it's full of ants. So he says, oh, okay. He gives me a sifter. He says, sift it. So I went to the Rosh Yeshiva, went to the head of the Yeshiva, and I said to him, Paul, what happened? And he says, that's not right. I said, no. He says, you tell him to sift it himself. So I went to the corner store and bought a pack of sugar, filled it up. And I told people I never had sugar on my coffee since, but I didn't have before then. But, that's... as we said, in those days, sugar and milk was a luxury item. Today it's the norm, so it's not a problem. Next thing, the ish zokain. You have someone who's older, the cholosh, or he's weaker. That it's going to be difficult for the person not to have something to drink or even to eat until davening's finished. But particularly Shabbos and Yom Tov, where it's a longer davening and it's going to be late. So the first thing he advises is that better he should daven early in his house, the Kaddish, and make Kiddush and have something to eat, and then go to shul and listen to all the things there. And to have in mind everything, and then daven musaf with them. And not to have his coffee with sugar, right, before accepting the kingship of Hashem on himself. That's what he says. Then he says, a person needs it for refuah. We're going to call it health. Refuah in certain context means healing. But in this case, a person, it's difficult, they're not able to eat. We're not able to wait, need for the health, or they're taking medication, something. You're allowed to eat and drink before davening. Because this is not luxury, it's not being conceded. It's because there's a need. Similarly, if you have a person, they won't be able to concentrate on their davening properly without eating or drinking. That's the davening is going to be worthless because they just can't manage it. If they want, then they may eat or drink before davening. So the bottom line is, to sum it all up, although it seems very harsh, you shouldn't have anything, and we see today that most people do have something. What's the difference? There's a few differences. One difference is that, well, before we get differences, the underlying principle is, what aren't we allowed to do? We can't have luxury. We can't have conceitedness. We can't have this concept of I put myself before Hashem. But if it's for a need, either for my health or so I can daven better because I can't concentrate otherwise, then it's not me. It's not about me. It's about that's what I need to do to daven properly, to serve Hashem properly, and then it's allowed. So in those days, people used to eat 2 meals. It was the norm. People ate 2 meals. They had we'll call it a brunch. A morning meal post davening was some type of brunch, and they ate at night. There was no such thing as a breakfast. It wasn't the, partly standard of living, partly people, different society. I mean, that was how it worked. And so to eat before davening was unusual. To eat a breakfast, what we call breakfast, would be unusual.
But these days we start at 10 o'clock on Saturday.
Right. So So nowadays, I'm just saying one of the reasons the difference was a whole different, eating before davening and those that eating at that time was a unusual thing. Today, it's the norm for people to have breakfast. And if they don't have a breakfast at a reasonable time now, so they may very
function.
they can't function.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Well, the Sfaradim, they daven nates. I mean, and I don't think that they really have time to even eat breakfast. You know what I'm saying?
Right. If you're gonna daven at nights at sunrise, and that's Shema Esrei at sunrise, the midah, so you're already halfway through davening, then you probably don't need to eat. And if you got up early enough to get there, you're probably able to eat or have a drink before the time. I daven also reasonably early most days. I give a shiur at 6:15. We daven at 7. I come home a little after 8, and so I don't really, I have a coffee beforehand. I have a coffee while we learn, but I don't have a need to eat at that time in the morning. But as Ben mentioned, particularly Shabbos when we daven later, Moshe is daven later. Everyone's meant to daven later than they do during the week. So it depends what time they daven. But if you're davening, mentioned 10 o'clock, and davening is at least 2.5 hours, let's say on a Shabbos without rushing, then if you go the time without eating anything, even the healthiest person is going to be feeling a little bit hungry, and it's going to distract them and detract from their davening. So having a little something. First of all, Shabbos is not the issue. Shabbos we're not allowed to fast until midday. Shabbos we're not allowed to fast, so we can't even do a half-day fast. So if we're going to be davening later and not eating anything until after the halachic midday, which with daylight saving sometimes might be after 1, but
Yes, it's 12:30. We usually eat.
Yeah. So, but in winter for sure it's going to be midday. So then you have to eat something because you're not allowed to fast. But even other days, sometimes people they'll daven a little bit late or whatever it is. So there's a famous story that illustrates the point. Of one of the I think it was the daughter-in-laws of the Samach Tzedek. She had to eat first thing in the morning, and when he followed up on her, he found out that what was happening. She'd get out very early to daven very early and then eat. And he told her that it's better to eat to daven than to daven to eat. Right? So the type of eating we shouldn't do is eating where I'm just putting my own luxury, my own self-centeredness before davening. But if it's because, I need to have a snack or something or a breakfast to get my day started, or have a coffee in order that I, can be the way. So it's not I'm not having a luxury, at least for today's times and today's standard of living. It's not a luxury. I don't think you should sit down and have one of those, sometimes you got I don't know if everyone's seen the Israeli breakfast, they have in hotels or something, or a restaurant in Israel, with 5 different courses. I'm not sure you should have one of them before davening. I mean, might go there and take a something, come back afterwards. But it's
Rabbi?
Yes.
I know a lot of and a number of big. I know not in ours, but the one that I used to go to, big Knesset I used to go to. Right after davening, they used to have like a breakfast for Rosh Chodesh. They used to have a breakfast afterwards. A big, they put out eggs, they put out this and that. It was a big, smorgasbord, so to say. You know what I'm saying?
So that's after davening.
That's after davening.
So that's not
something. But if you're davening and that's on your mind, to think about pressing afterwards. I mean, that can interfere with your kavanah, you know what I'm saying? That's
yeah. Well, I think if the shul puts out such a good spread that they're gonna be thinking that's gonna consume daven, they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Their caterers are good. So that's
Yeah,
good. But it's but you're right. But yeah, you have a little something. So the point is, we although we should be doing, although we shouldn't do anything before davening, we should daven and everything's first. But we have to look at the facts on the ground. So are we davening in order to eat or eating in order to daven? And again, it depends. Like I said, if you're davening at some people mentioned the daven night instead of a second minyan. So you have you're davening at sunrise. You probably don't need to eat much beforehand. But it depends what time the minyan is. A lot of places is only 1 minyan. It depends where you are.
Rabbi?
Yes.
In the case of somebody who is pre-diabetic or diabetic, obviously they have to have something.
Yep.
When they get up, it would then be permissible, wouldn't it?
Yes, then it's permissible. So we said for refuah, for health, you can have whatever you need to have. So the exceptions are for health, if we're feeling weak, or if we're not going to be able to daven properly.
I wanted to ask you one more question.
Yes.
With respect to Netilat Yadayim,
is this Netilat Yadayim in the morning or for a meal?
In the morning.
When
we first get up, we do Netilat Yadayim without the bracha?
Generally, we do it without a bracha, although in concept there should be a bracha, but most of us, because we haven't washed out our mouth yet, we haven't brushed out, so we've got not the best taste and smell in our mouth, not respectful to Hashem's name. It could be we aren't as properly dressed as we should be. So generally what we do is in concept, a bracha belongs there, but we wash without a bracha, and after we've, you had your shower, whatever you do, you get dressed, what a person does in the morning routine, then they start all the morning brachas. They wash a second time, because when we get dressed, we touch parts of our body that are normally covered, and then our shoes and various things. We've been to the bathroom. So
and
after,
also, if we evacuate, obviously, then we have to wash and make a bracha.
Yes. Yeah. So then we wash a second time, and then we say the bracha until the Sidaim, and then start the morning blessings.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so chapter 8, number 3. So as we said, excuse me, this time that we shouldn't really start taking care of our own needs before we daven is dawn. However, Gimel number 3, Yesh Omrim, there are those who say, Shafil come b'chatzos halayla, also the time kodim shispal. Even if you get up after midnight, so any time after midnight already. B'chein Nachul Hachmis, he says it's good to be strict about this if you can. But if you feel a bit weak, you can eat and drink whatever in order to strengthen yourself, for your, he says, for Torah study, but not only Torah study, for the davening, for whatever we need to do. So it's not something that generally people are strict about today. Okay. Daled, number 4. Mayim, to have a drink of water. V'chein tea or coffee, l'sukkah v'chalav. Likewise, a tea or a coffee without milk and sugar. And as we said today, even with milk and sugar, because in those days, milk and sugar was a luxury. Today, milk and sugar is a standard, so it's not a problem. Mutter lishtois koydem at tefillah. We said you're allowed to have it before davening. We mentioned this before. And this is in the first instance. Even if you're not someone who's weak, even if there's not health issues, even if it's not, can have a drink. Even past dawn. In other words, there's no time limits. There's no problems to have a drink. Because there's no luxury or indulgence in doing this. Now, even on Shabbos and Yom Tov, where normally you have to make kiddush before you have something, you can have these things before davening, and kiddush does not create a problem You can have it without Kiddush. Why? Because since you are currently pre-davening, you are not yet obligated to make Kiddush. Now, exactly when do you become obligated to make Kiddush? On Shabbos or Yom Tov? So there's one view is right after you finish Shachris, and the other view is not till after Torah reading. Right? So there are certain shuls that they, after Shachris, before Torah reading, they have a break. People sit and learn. And, then they continue afterwards. And so they drink coffee and various things at the break. But probably best to be after Shachris, to be concerned about this. The Ein Kiddush El Makom Suda. Now, Kiddush is only when there's a meal. If there's no meal, there's no Kiddush. Which means that your Kiddush has to be when you're going to eat. And you're not meant to have a whole meal, right? Even when, as we said, if you're eating in order to daven, that's something light. We're not washing for bread and having a whole meal like a Shabbos meal. So you can't have a su'udah, you can't have a proper full-blown Shabbos meal at that time. So therefore, it is not time for Kiddush yet. So since the Kiddush obligation didn't start, whatever we have before davening, we can have it without having to worry about Kiddush. Okay. Hey, number 5. So till now we spoke about eating. In other words, we're talking about giving ourselves a luxury. So as we said, just to sum it up, anything that's indulgence that we shouldn't eat before davening, but anything that's eating because either we need it for our health, we need to be able to concentrate, to be able to function, then it's allowed because it's not an indulgence. So now we're going to speak about other things.
Rabbi,
Also, yes.
If we drink water on getting up, which is an Ayurvedic practice, do we have to say Asher Hakol Nehiyeh B'Paro?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, lahakdim. Well, depend. Actually, I'll just mention about water. If you drink anything else, then yes, water can sometimes not require blessing. I'll tell you what I mean.
Until what?
Water can sometimes not require a blessing. I'll explain what I mean. We only say a blessing when we're having a hana. We're going to loosely translate that as a benefit/enjoyment. So if I'm thirsty, water gives me some benefit. If I'm not thirsty and I drink orange juice, presuming that we like orange juice, then if I'm not thirsty, I still benefit from the taste. I still get a certain enjoyment from the taste. Water doesn't have a taste. So if I'm not thirsty, then I don't make a bracha on water. So if I'm thirsty, so I wake up in the morning, if I fancy a bit of a drink, so then I will make a bracha on my water. But let's say I was taking a medication. I'm not thirsty at all. I don't need any water right now. I'm just taking a little bit of water to help the pill go down, capsule go down. Then I don't need to make a bracha because I'm not having the water for my personal hana, again, loosely translated enjoyment benefit. It's just to aid the capsule going down. So, although I said, yes, you do make a blessing on the water, just clarifying, because normally in the morning, you're a little bit thirsty when, that's why you have a drink. But if it's just like to take a pill or something, then, and you're not thirsty at all, then you don't make a bracha.
So this is a full cup of water.
So what was the question?
Yeah, the question is this: that if you're drinking water to take your morning medication, then you are deriving benefit from it, even though you don't have hana'ah per se, but you are deriving benefit.
True. I mean, if you didn't have any benefit, you wouldn't do it. But it's an indirect. It's an indirect. Just it happens to help the pill go down, as opposed to a direct, actual benefit. I'm thirsty, but I had some water. Now I feel better. That's sort of where we draw the line. It's a gray line, but it's but there's a line. Okay. Yeah.
What I was referring to is, it's a full glass of warm water. May have some garlic in it or some lemon, or may not have anything, but it's a full glass of water. I guess there would be some pleasure involved. It's not necessarily for medication.
Yeah. So if you're thirsty and or you're enjoying the taste, then you then you say a blessing. If it's just for health and you're not thirsty, in other words, if you wouldn't have it at all without the health reason, then you wouldn't say a blessing.
But then you have the obligation afterwards to say burn the flushos, right?
When you don't say a before blessing, you don't say an after blessing. So again, if we're just having some water, now normally when you take water, if it's only enough to take down a pill, well, I guess it depends how many pills you take in the morning. Some people take a lot, but if it was only enough to do one pill, then it wouldn't be enough for an after blessing anyway. But if a person drank a glass of water, so it's a revius, we need to drink to it's about 86 mils. I think it's I'm not sure what that is in fluid ounces. But it's a small cup. Small cup. Okay. So hey, number 5. Also lahakdim the Pesach Aveiro the Kabul Ponov Litin Lishon. We shouldn't go out to a friend's before davening to greet him, to give him shalom, say shalom aleichem, the traditional greeting, or even to say good morning. Shnamaz says, right, withdraw yourself from man whose breath is in his nostrils, because what reason should we give him esteem? Right? And Kolaim, this means to say, what does this person have that we honor this person before we honor Hashem? So again, as we keep saying, life is not black and white. So let's start with the concept. The concept is we shouldn't greet people. We definitely shouldn't go out of our way to greet people before we daven. We should greet Hashem, then greet people. So that's the concept. Now, as we said, life isn't always black and white. Sometimes you're going to pick someone up at the airport, and the flight comes in early in the morning, and therefore you're going to go before davening, and so you're going to greet someone. Okay, so obviously here there's a need. In other words, we're not discarding Hashem's honor to not go pick up this person. It's this is what we can't do is decide. Before I go to shul, I'm going to go off to Yankel, who's a very important person in the town, and I'm going to go greet Yankel before I do anything first thing in the morning. Because why are we honoring a person? There was you have lahavdil. We don't want to you have these certain people. They go give honor to the Godfather or something. So they show their respects. So what we can't do is we can't go show our respects to another human being before we show our respects to Hashem. Because that person also has to honor and give respect to Hashem. But if you have to go pick up someone at the airport, you're allowed to go greet them. Also, if you see someone in the street, it can be very rude if you don't give some type of greeting, and people can be offended. So since the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch here is bringing a Gemara, piece of Talmud, that's Safra Damara Tov or Safra Tava, the Aramaic for good morning. So what you notice is a lot of people, they just say morning, when they greet someone in the shul, they don't say good morning, because in order not to say the what it says not to in the Talmud, because there's when you see someone in shul and you smile at them and you say morning or something like that, this is, again, you're not going out to show your respects, out of your way to show respects to another human being before you show respects to Hashem. It's just a basic courtesy. It's a fine line, but still a line. For
What
example,
about-
and just 1 second. Let's say, and also there's some people who don't know this halacha, and they could think you don't like them. So it's good to say something. For example, on Tisha B'Av, which is coming up soon, God willing, Mashiach will come, and we won't be a day of mourning, it'll be a day of joy. But if, God forbid, or in the past, when it was still a day of mourning, one of the things you can't do is greet people. So a lot of people don't know this halacha, and they can be very offended. So often when someone came into shul, I would make a comment like, unfortunately, because it's Tisha B'Av, I can't greet you today. But if I was allowed to greet you, I would have said good morning. So we also have to take into account people's feelings. It doesn't mean because of people's feelings we can change every halacha. It's not what we mean. We still have to keep halacha. But so the Gemara says don't say good morning. So say morning. Morning, but yeah, Ben, sorry I interrupted you you were going to ask
No,
something.
I was interrupting you, but I wanted to say some people, when they go for Mincha Mariv, to make sure that there's a minyan, they would stop at a friend's house and pick him up too and make him come with.
Yeah. So
Is
Mincha
that
Mariv
okay?
is easier, because he was talking about in the morning. We've already davened Shabbos, so we've already given our respects to Hashem. Now we can, but it means when we first wake up in the morning, we have to give our respects to Hashem before we give our respects to someone else. But not every greeting is like giving
Okay, so
respects to
Mincha
someone.
Mariv is okay.
Yeah, no problems.
Okay.
Yeah, David. Yeah.
Rabbi, I had my hand up. I wanted to address what happens if, for example, you encounter on Shabbos morning people, you go to the regular, let's say 9 o'clock minyan, and people have gone to Hashkama minyan, and so they're on their way home and you're on your way to shul, and they say good Shabbos.
So good Shabbos is not a problem like good morning. Good Shabbos is also honoring Hashem, because you're honoring the Shabbos. So good Shabbos is not the same issue. It's good morning. So it's more of a weekday issue.
And what happens if you encounter a guy whom you're supposed to smile to?
Yeah. So I think you say morning. Say if you just say the word morning in the right tone of voice, it's taken as good morning. The same type of thing. And like I said, just like with the eating, the eating issue, as we said, eating is indulgence before davening. But if there's a need, we're allowed to eat. So again, the idea here is that there's a concept of giving your respects to someone of it's not just a greeting. It's something a bit more than that. So that's what we shouldn't do before we give our show our respect to Hashem. But a basic courtesy, or we'll call them a minimalist greeting, that's not really that same idea.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Yes, David. Yeah.
There's a similar situation when Shabbos afternoon. You're not really supposed to say good Shabbos. I don't know if it's a minhag or it's a law, a halacha, but a Shabbos afternoon after mincha is the time that the King David passed away, I believe.
Yeah.
And because of that, we don't say good Shabbos. So you're walking to shul and somebody's already walking back and you haven't davened mincha, they have davened mincha or vice versa. So you don't want to be rude and you don't know what to do.
Yeah. So just for other people, the background, there were three great tzaddikim who passed away at the end of Shabbos. And so not that there's mourning on Shabbos, even a real mourning, God forbid, doesn't observe any mourning, but some people have a custom to not wish people good Shabbos at that time, because there's some Shabbos joy lacking or something because of the situation. So I hear the situation.
Who were the three? Who were the three?
It was David Melech, it was Moshe Rabbeinu, and I'm not sure what the third was right now, but it's what we say the three psukim of Tzidkoscha in corresponding to. But so personally, I'm not particular about that custom myself. You know, I would wish people good Shabbos right till Marva after. Hopefully, I'm not admitting my sins in public. You know, it's but if it's something you do, I mean, I guess the same way you can say, same way we say morning, you can say Shabbos. I guess, you know, that's, and I would definitely, again, everyone, you know, the best thing about advice is you don't have to take it. Right?
Rabbi, I just asked my son, he's the scholar in residence. He says the third person was Yosef.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you. So just to finish here, just one second, just to finish what I'm going to say, you know, when Yaakov married two sisters, possibly four, but at least initially he married two sisters. So our patriarch Yaakov, now, although the Torah had not been given yet, you're not allowed to, the Torah tells us that we're not allowed to marry two sisters in their lifetime. Now, if one passes away, God forbid, then you can marry the other one, but not in their lifetime. Not meant to put sisters against each other as like competition wives. So even though the Torah had not been given yet, we know the patriarchs and the matriarchs, they knew many or all the mitzvahs prophetically, and they kept the mitzvahs anyway. So the question is, how could Yaakov marry two sisters if he's keeping the Torah as a custom? How could he marry two sisters? So the answer is that he wasn't not yet keeping it as a mitzvah. The Torah hadn't been given yet. He was keeping it as a custom, and he'd given his word to Rachel that he was going to marry her. Okay, he got tricked, he married Leah. And we say that keeping one's word is more important than a custom. It doesn't overrule a halacha, a law, but keeping one's word overrules a custom. So again, as I said, the best thing about advice, you don't have to take it. As not wishing people, those who don't wish people good Shabbos that time, it's a custom. If you think someone's going to be offended, or you're worried they're going to be offended, I'd put it to you that being a mensch, worry about people's feelings would overrule a custom. Not a law necessarily, sometimes people just have to, but when it's a custom, so I when it comes to these kinds of things, I try to err on the side of caution. Of course, none of us are prophets, so we can't see what would happen if we do this and what happen we don't do that, and sit down and examine it for half an hour and work out what we're going to do. We often have to make decisions in a split second, and we're all human. No one's perfect. Only Hashem is perfect, which means even if we're trying to make decisions with the best of will, we can still make mistakes either way. But I think if we, that's my humble, not that I'm very humble, but my humble advice is when it comes to minhag, it comes to customs. A custom that's in Shulchan Aruch is like almost halacha. Like, for example, not having kitnius and Pesach. I'm not talking about that. But something that's a general custom, I would always, I think, err on the side of caution where the people are going to be offended or something like that.
Rabbi, I also want to say that we learned in Brachot the same thing, not like what you just said about Asur Lagdim Lepetach Havero Bifnei HaTfilah.
Yeah.
So in Brachot they said the same thing when we learned about Shema and Bechot HaShachar in Masechet Brachot.
Yeah. Well, that's where it comes from.
Right. That's
Right.
what they were talking about.
Sorry. W in the middle, you want to say, continue?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the acronym for the three tzaddikim, I just figured it out, is miyad.
Okay.
Moshe,
Well, yeah, that's
Joseph,
mentioned in
David.
many places.
Oh, I thought I made it up. Okay.
No, it's in Sichos also. That's the lost take of miyad mamish, miyad, which also means immediately. So, Moshe, were you going to ask something before? No?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
But it's already past. I mean, after. No, but I just want to say when I was living in another state priorly, I remember I was walking to Shul with a few other people, and the Gentile people that are walking past you, they say good Shabbos, Shabbos. And, you can't say good Shabbos back to them. And if you don't, you can see that they might get offended. So I just tipped my hat or something like that because I didn't want to be offensive and smiling at them. But how is that the appropriate way to do that? Because, it just, you don't want to offend the people.
So you can say good Shabbos for davening because we said good Shabbos is different to good morning. That saying good Shabbos is also honoring Hashem. We're declaring it's like a mini kiddush. Saying good Shabbos on a smaller level, the same as making kiddush. It's like sanctifying the Shabbos day, declaring it Shabbos. So to say good Shabbos is not a problem for davening. It's good morning, and I think if you just say morning, or what's up?
Good Shabbos is better than picking your hat off. Taking your hat off, you're giving cover to the person.
No, I didn't say taking my hat off. I didn't say
it was like tipping.
I said tipping my hat. I said tipping my hat. Please listen. You'll maybe hear that a little bit better next time, okay? I don't take my hat off. I said tipping my hat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So no, not necessarily. No. It's anyway. Let's go to the next one. Squeeze one more in. We're in the middle of one. So we said we don't go and pass for style people. Feel right. Shnemar. Why can't we do it? Because it says Chido lechem in Adam ashenisham va'apoy mechshavhu. Right. We withdraw yourself from humans because he's a breath in his nostril. Why does he get importance? Climate. This means to say, what is special about a human or anything else for that matter that you go and honor them and pay the respects before you honor and pay respects to Hashem? Now, the impago derech mikrov. So you didn't greet someone; you just happened to meet someone. Now, mitzad din mutter l'tein lo shalom. Technically speaking, you're allowed to say, give him a full greeting. Technically speaking. But it's appropriate. What you should do is change the terminology. Don't use the regular greeting. This makes a person remember and keep in mind that we're not meant to get involved in other things before davening. So that's why it says saying good morning, you say morning, or something like that. So I guess we end the same way as we did last week with one paragraph left in the chapter. We leave everyone in suspense for the end. And we've got to play spooky music, to emphasize the suspense here.
Rabbi,
thank you, Rabbi. This discussion prompts a question that's similar, but directly off topic. That is, some people are very machmir about on Erev Shabbos not saying good Shabbos. So you're on your way to shul, and you see a friend at mincha time, and you say good Shabbos, and the response you get is good Erev Shabbos. What's proper
So,
halachic protocol?
so it really depends. The real issue is after Plaga Mincha. Plaga Mincha is 3/4 through the daylight time. So that is the earliest time you could bring in Shabbos. So in theory, by saying good Shabbos at that point, you could actually bring in Shabbos, which would mean if you're still driving, you're still doing things. So, 10 o'clock in the morning is not really an issue, even though it's a Friday. The main issue is after Plaga Mincha, and that'll fluctuate what time that is, as the clocks, as it gets, Shabbos comes in earlier or later. But when we divide the amount of daylight hours, if we just look at how long is daylight, so 3/4 into that time, it's called Plaga Mincha. That's the earliest time someone could bring Shabbos. And as we said, saying good Shabbos in a certain level is like a mini Kiddush. So it could be, it's like you made Kiddush and you on a certain level. Obviously, you didn't fully obligation in Kiddush, but to a certain degree. And therefore, the person might not be able to do Malach afterwards. So that's why people would be strict about that from that time onwards. But Friday morning is no problem. Even early afternoon. That's that issue.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
When
All
we have our classes on Thursday afternoon, the teacher says good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. And the truth is, even when we have Sunday and Monday, I often say good Shabbos because I don't see you till next week. So with that, wish everyone a wonderful week, and we'll say good Shabbos safely.
Good Shabbos.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Basically, I think one of the issues that Moshe was mentioning, and it happens, if Goyim see us, and they know it's gonna be Shabbat, and a lot of times they'll say Shabbat Shalom, or they'll say Good Shabbos to us, and we understand we're really not supposed to be hailing a Goy with the Shabbos, but how would you answer that? Just not to be impolite.
I mean, there's lots of ways you can say, "Oh, thank you so much," and have a wonderful day as well. There's lots of things you can say, and I don't think it's. I mean, to a certain extent, you don't want to say "Have a wonderful Shabbos" too, because they're not allowed to keep Shabbos. Right? Non-Jews not allowed to keep Shabbos. Just say thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day as well. It's.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Rabbi,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I have a question for you. Has nothing to do with what you were talking about today.
Okay.
When I was younger in New York, I seen, I don't know how many, maybe 3 or 4 nuns, but they were not in black habit. They were in gray habit. And on the back of their habit, they had the Star of David. You know anything about that?
No, I can't confess to any expertise in nuns' habits, but look, they have all kinds of groups that even the used in Australia was this group, the Nuns of the Lovers of Zion or something, when they used to have pro-Israel, different events and different things. So it could be related, might not be related.
That was the first time I've ever seen it, and I've never seen it since.
Maybe they were bikers in disguise, and that was their.
Bruce, I think
Go ahead, David.
I think it's none of our business.
Ha ha ha!
Oh boy.
Okay, if we're already seeping that low, I'll say it's nonsense. But
Nonsense. That's a good one.
All right.
Take
So
care.
you're welcome. Wish everyone a wonderful week and have a good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Take care.
Great week, everybody. Good Shabbos, Rabbi.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Too early to say have a good Shabbos.
I know, but I won't see you again. Or maybe I will. But
This
not
week? Why
expected.
not?
Coming to Phoenix?
No, but what's happened to Zoom?
It's true, but I'm only on once a week at the moment.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's a
Good.
Okay.
Have a great week.
You too. Take care. But if you're going, yeah. All right. See. Take care. Okay. Ciao.